Welcome back. It's Beyond the Box Score, presented to you by Fantasy Football Today, here over on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube page. Or if you're listening, please do us a favor. I was talking about this yesterday with Debo, Jacob. We need ratings and reviews for Beyond the Box Score. It's its own feed. So if you were searching for our podcast, you said, I can't watch the YouTube. That's not something I can do in the middle of my day. I like to walk. I like to drive. I like to listen to podcasts. Where is it? I went to the Fantasy Football Today podcast page on Spotify, on iTunes. Where is it? It's not there. It has its own feed with a green logo. So you can find that on Spotify or iTunes. We need your help, though. Please do us a favor and help us boost up those algorithms by leaving a review and leaving a 5-star review and a comment. And here's what we're going to do, Jacob. I came up with this idea. It's not novel. It's been done by every single podcast in the history of the world, but we're copying it. If you leave us a review and a rating on Spotify and iTunes, we will answer that question. So leave a question within the review about your team, trade, whatever you need, who you want to draft, and we will answer that on air on our shows moving forward if you leave us a 5-star review. Only 5-star reviews. I won't think I'm going to read a 4-star review. That's not happening. But today's a great day on Beyond the Box Score. I'm Dan Schneider, your host. That's Jacob, my co-host, and we are joined by Dave Richard, the Hall of Famer, the dude who got me into fantasy in the first place here, the guy who, when I came over from the NFL team to the fantasy team, was the first person to reach out to me, of all people, and offer a lending hand. And that's who he is for us at Fantasy Football Today, but he's also a lot more than that. He's someone who dedicated his whole life to this thing, and you're going to find that out today. You probably know this already from listening to him on the main show. But one thing I always appreciate about Dave is he leaves no stone unturned. And what I mean by that is he's grinding the preseason film. I thought Jacob was crazy. I thought Dave was crazy when I said that. Now he's looking at his watch. This is too long of an intro. So without further ado, what's going on today, Dave? Are you ready to talk preseason football and joint practices?
Jacob, you won. It hit the over. I am definitely ready, but I do feel like we need to begin by saying that watching preseason games, it shouldn't influence anybody in a major way. At minimum, it can confirm priors. Jacob, Dan, you guys have watched a ton of draft prospects. You guys know who these guys are. I've watched my fair share. When we see the guy that we saw in college play and he's doing good things, that makes us feel better about the player. I don't know if it means we should overreact and start, chasing him in drafts and all that other stuff. Similarly, if a player stinks, I don't know if we should slide him down the board that much. There's one guy that did slide down the board quite a bit for me because I couldn't stand some of the things he was doing. Is it correctable? Yeah. Does it mean he's going to correct it? I don't know. But
you're not going to say RJ Harvey, are you? You're not going to come on here and slander RJ Harvey, are you?
You are going to have to wait to find out what I saw from RJ Harvey. I don't know if you're going to like it or not. But the point is simply, these are small sample sizes. I do bring some knowledge from a couple of joint practices that I've been to. I will spill my guts on them as much as I can. And I think we should just get started because now I've been talking as long as Dan has.
I want to get your take before I do want one 30,000-foot view question for you, Dave. As someone who has been to these joint practices, and you can talk about them on the show today, I'm very excited to hear about that. But as someone who's also watched a lot of the preseason tape, I've heard from a lot in the community, analysts, whoever it may be, that they can glean more from the joint practices versus the preseason tape at this stage of the game and where the NFL is at. Would you agree with that?
Yes, because when the starters are practicing against another team, and even when they're practicing against their own team, they're running their offense as they intend to run it during an NFL season. What we watch in the preseason is a toned down version of those offenses. Now, effort and execution will obviously be big things, and that's the thing to look for. Yeah. But it's not like the play designs that we see in the preseason. I don't think we're going to see a lot of exotics in the preseason that'll come out in the regular season. I mean, we're going to see, runs to the left end and, passes to a slant. We see that all the time. That's nothing special.
Okay, Jacob, let's start us off here. Let's talk about quarterbacks to start this thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know who played, and who started. Like for the Saints, Spencer Rattler was the starter, played 28 snaps, which is a ton. That's more than any of the other starting quarterbacks that matter. Like Kyle Trask played 40, but after Rattler at 28, we've got like Bo Nix at 18. So pretty much the whole first half went to Rattler. We saw quite a bit of Tyler Shuck after that, But it was Rattler, Bo Nix, Kyler Murray actually played quite a bit. We got a few series with the starters. James Conner was in for the first and then came out for the second, and it was all Trey Benson featured on that drive. Joe Burrow played a lot with his starters. Jamar Chase, that was kind of surprising. Tua Tagovailoa decided to play, even though basically all the other starters other than Devon Achane did not play. Drake May played 14 snaps, so we got to see quite a bit of first team offense for the Patriots, which is exciting because it's our first look at Travion Henderson. It's our first look at the new Josh McDaniels offense. There was a lot of pre-snap motion. I'm excited to hear from Dave, see if he has any thoughts on the Patriots, because we actually did get a decent look at them. Cam Ward, same thing, 14 snaps for him, so that's a decent look at the first team offense there and what they might like to do. I think Brian Callahan was not able to do a lot of the stuff that he maybe wanted to do last year because of Will Levis. So we got to see the offense running there. A lot of pre-snap motion to Calvin Ridley. 12 snaps for Bryce Young in the first team offense. A lot of good clean looks of Bryce throwing with anticipation to T-Mac. They did make a successful drive. JJ McCarthy, 12 snaps, so that's exciting. Of course, we've been highly anticipating him getting back on the field. And then we got 11 snaps of Jordan Love, so some possible takeaways there. 11 snaps of Trevor Lawrence, 10 snaps of Justin Fields, some possible takeaways there. A couple of drives to each of those guys. First look at Russell Wilson with the Giants, and then like Geno Smith and Patrick Mahomes started but barely played at all.
You guys can hear me now, right?
You're back,
Dave's
Dave.
back.
We can hear you.
Sorry about cutting out earlier.
All good. All
And
good.
yes, Jacob, we are definitely going to talk Patriots.
Well, let's go there then. Let's talk team level stuff, because I think when it comes to preseason, you guys have kind of nailed it. What I'm looking for is, how do these players look? Like, for example, is Caleb Johnson adjusting to the speed of the game? Questions like that versus schematic questions, because like you said earlier, these defensive coordinators aren't really scheming to stop offenses and vice versa. So from a team level standpoint, you could touch on anything you glean from the joint practice as well, Dave. What has stood out to you so far from our preseason?
From the joint practice, this is a Josh McDaniels offense all the way. Plenty of tight end usage, lots of middle of the field, obviously throws to the running back, the slot receiver very much involved. This Josh McDaniels has not changed his full playbook just because he was out of the league for a year. And even Hunter Henry mentioned that after practice. I asked him about it, and I said, can you compare it to other iterations of the Patriots offense? I meant other iterations of, like New England's offense before this year, not even McDaniels. And he took it to McDaniels and he goes, I love this offense. I know what Rob Gronkowski did in it once upon a time and other tight ends. This is going to be this. He was very excited about his potential in the offense. And if there was an Austin Hooper around, I'd be pretty excited about Hunter Henry too. He's a streamer, by the way. I love his matchups to begin the year. Week 1 against Vegas. That's at minimum a guy you could use in DFS. At max, a last round pick that you could have and start in week 1 and then find another tight end after that. But Demario Douglas has been a very popular name on Fantasy Football Today. Seeing him in person was a little jarring because he's small. He is not a big guy, but he is a fast guy. And Drake May looked for him a lot. Kayshon Boutte ran with the first team offense. He wasn't flying downfield, but he looked better. Steph Diggs didn't practice that much against Washington. When he did, he got a target pretty much every single time. He looked crisp. Sounds like he's going to be ready to go for week 1. Ramondre Stevenson actually had some good burst to his game. He did not look sluggish at all. Held the ball high and tight in practice. He knows that if he fumbles it again, he's going to lose a lot of work. I thought it was interesting that Stevenson, Travion Henderson, and Antonio Gibson were all rotating with the first and second teams. I'm not looking into that in any single way. I just think that that's just what they do for practice and what they'll do in a game. It'll probably be down to 2 guys. I bet you guess which 2 will rotate in. Travion looked great. The highlights everybody's seen. He's outstanding. He did have 2 drops in the practice, but boo-hoo-hoo. One of them was really tough. He was running a wheel route, and Drake May placed the ball in the bucket, in the end zone. Perfect throw. Travion had to go over his shoulder to bring it in, and it hit him in the hands, and it went right through. And I would imagine that could be a touchdown at some point during the year. but they are definitely going to move him to run along the sideline at some point, even out of the backfield, running those wheel routes. It's easy to get excited about Travion Henderson. And then there's Drake May. And I think Drake May is going to be good. He had 2 off-target throws throughout the entire joint practice. I know he had that ugly, stupid fumble in the preseason game. I am hoping that he kind of learns his lesson on that and he just throws the ball away or takes the sack. So he still has some learning to do, but the arm strength is there. The accuracy is pretty good. And I know he doesn't have that number 1 receiver. And I don't know if Stephon Diggs can be that guy again like he was for Josh Allen once upon a time. But
Kyle Williams.
Oh man, I can't. He didn't really play that much with the starters.
Yeah, he's buried
In the first game. Yeah.
I mean, he certainly has talent, Jacob. There's no doubt about it, but I'm not drafting him. I think it's a waste of a pick at this point.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let him sit on waivers and then pick him up if he ends up making an impact, or if Booty makes a mistake. I think that's when Kyle Williams jumps in. So maybe he's their 4th receiver to begin the year, but I don't think they're rushing him at all. Drake May is a good takeaway here too. I just think that he's absolutely worth drafting. If you have him to be your starter to begin the year against Las Vegas, I don't love it. But as a guy to have on your bench who has potential to be the low rent version of Josh Allen, I mean, that sounds damn good to me. I wouldn't mind having that guy on my bench and absolutely have him on my dynasty team.
There are a few things I want to unpack there, actually. Sorry, Jacob, did you have something?
The Patriots used pre-snap motion on 10 out of 14 plays when Drake May was.
They used it a ton in practice too.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I think we could see McDaniels kind of continue to evolve. So I just wanted to note that. The other thing was like the Henderson targets came quick. I liked that, like when May recognized, diagnosed the blitz, he's like, "That's my hot. That's where I'm going. It's Henderson."
No panic to this game right now.
I thought May looked really, really sharp on the first drive, and then that sack. And this is obviously just speculation, just for fun, but it almost felt like he was just bored in the preseason. Like he was just like, I'm going to try to make something happen here because the first drive went real clean and I did a good job.
I think one other thing, and this could be a warning for everybody involved in New England. The whole play where he should have gotten sacked and instead he turned the ball over, that was caused by the Commanders running a stunt that the offensive line couldn't handle. And the left side of the offensive line for New England is all rookie. It's Will Campbell.
Right.
And it's I'm blanking on the guard. I can bring his name up. You might know it, but he was I think a late day 2 or early day 3 pick. I got it, Dan. I'll look it up. But the left side of that line, who is that?
Jared Wilson.
Oh, they are playing. I thought they were going to move him to center.
3rd round pick from Georgia. He's from Georgia.
He was supposed to be a center.
Yeah, well, he's playing. He's been starting at guard for them, and they've had.
It's not a good sign.
Well, it's just weird that Cole Strange isn't in that spot.
Yeah.
So I do think that if they stick with it, and obviously they're going to stick with Will Campbell, left tackle, that is going to be something that defenses will attack. So week 1, for example, you bet your butt Max Crosby's going to be in Will Campbell's face a lot in that game.
There's a lot I want to unpack just about this team. So we're going to have to focus a little bit because this is a big fantasy just quagmire, I think, for a lot of people. First of all, Jacob and I named Drake May as one of our breakouts on yesterday's show. Again, you can find all of our shows on our feed. But one thing that could hold it back is what you just talked about, Dave. This offensive line, we're all just projecting it to be better based on drafting a Will Campbell in round 1. I'll tell you what, Dave, from my evaluation, Will Campbell was one of the weaker first offensive tackles I've seen selected in a draft class in a very, very long time. Some people think he should have played guard. Maybe he'll be okay at tackle. I'm not sold on that. Jared Wilson at guard, I'm not sold on that either. And just everything across that line. The second thing is, I'm excited about Kyle Williams too, Jacob, but I think being part of McDaniel's offense means those rookies take a while at receiver to get snaps. I think it's really important to note. You have to know, from a mental standpoint, you have to be so smart to play in this system. You have to be so up to date. I'm not banking on Kyle Williams, but the two things I wanted to ask you, Dave, were one, we've heard rumors and whispers that in a McDaniel's offense, Drake May could be used more like Josh Allen in the red zone as a runner in zone read, which would just torpedo his fantasy value if he's taken 6 to 8 touchdowns off the ground. Did you see any of that during the joint practice? Something maybe they're hiding? What are your thoughts on that?
There was I don't remember if it was 7-on-7 or team. I think it was team, where his first read was covered and there was just a huge amount of space in front of him on the left side, I might add. And he just waltzed right in 5 yards out. And he's spoken multiple times this offseason about not wanting to run the ball a lot. Like, he certainly is going to use his mobility, and it's a good thing that he's got that mobility because the offensive line, the left side and the middle, is a concern. But I think it's almost like what we saw in the preseason game when he ran for a touchdown off schedule. The Patriots aren't going to design a ton of runs for him,
Right.
but they're not going to tell him don't run. They're not going to say, oh, no matter what you do, stay in the pocket. I think that they're going to embrace his ability to run. And yes, I do think 6 rushing touchdowns is in play for Drake May.
And the second thing I wanted to follow up with you and get your thought on, Dave, was there was a lot of discussion. And I think it is by design that we saw, like you said, Jacob, May was calm, collected, and came off to that running back read and threw it to him a lot in the preseason game. Something he talked about earlier this preseason. He said, I'm not going to scramble as much. I'm going to look to that outlet. And that was Henderson a lot. Yeah. But Dave, throughout the McDaniels history, and we touched on this a little, but I am curious your thoughts on this. It has been a multi-back system. It hasn't really even been a 1 or a 2-back system. Like, this is the classic Patriots where we were frustrated with running backs in fantasy for years and years and years. And that's why, as I see TreVeyon Henderson now getting insanely hyped up boards, I mean, people are going crazy on him. He was just bid on $17. Somebody won him in an auction I was in Tuesday night, more expensive than James Cook. And that was before Cook came back to practice, just to give you an idea. Are you at all worried about the past usage of running backs in a Patriots McDaniel system? Because I feel like it could cap Henderson in a big way.
There's a lot to say here, so I'm going to need a minute. And I'm going to read it from a story. I wrote about this on CBS Sports. So if you're crazy about TreVeyon Henderson, I recommend reading this. Josh McDaniels has been a play caller 17 full seasons. Throughout the partial season in Las Vegas, there's another partial season that I also threw out. Only 3 times in those 17 years as a play caller has any running back averaged 20 touches per game. Only 10 times has a back averaged 15 plus touches per game. 5 times in 17 years has a running back averaged at least 15 PPR points under McDaniels. 10 times has a back averaged 13 PPR points under McDaniels. That's the first part. The second part is when McDaniels does settle on a lead back, that guy is usually 220 pounds. Sometimes he's like Sony Michel and he's around 215. But if you look through Josh McDaniels' history, he's got big dudes running the football. He's got Ramondre Stevenson-sized dudes running the football. And then he has another guy who's lighter and more versatile, working off of that main back in the offense. Think back to James White. Think back to Dion Lewis. Think back to Danny Woodhead. And Josh McDaniels admittedly says TreVeyon Henderson is like those guys, but he's fast. So I think Josh knows that TreVeyon Henderson can be an even better weapon than all of those guys. And it's not like James White was a fantasy megastar for more than 1 year. Same thing with Dion Lewis. Same thing with Danny Woodhead. But they were contributors. They were good. We can't draft TreVeyon Henderson in round 4 and accept a good year. If he averages 13 PPR points per game, I think that's bad. We need him to be better than that. And on top of that, Henderson's track record, certainly at Ohio State, his last 3 years there, 7 carries inside the 5. And when he got banged up in 2023, they brought in Quinshon Judkins in 2024, and it was those two working together.
Right.
So it's the only thing, but it's a big thing that keeps me from moving TreVeyon Henderson into, like round 3.
Right.
Because if
he's headed.
Right. And I know that's where he's headed. And the other side to that coin is we are 2 Ramondre Stevenson fumbles away from that absolute scenario playing out. Because they can't use Antonio Gibson as their
I guess not. Back. I guess they don't have the depth.
So I think it's going to take Josh McDaniels making a substantial change to his past and his philosophy for TreVeyon Henderson to break through. But I think he's so talented just from watching him in practice, even though he dropped 2 passes. I don't care. I think I think that potential exists. So I can no longer say, shame on you. You took him in round 4. I don't blame you if you do it. I don't know if I'm going to do it. Round 5, I'm all over him for sure. I just don't know how often he's going to last that long.
Right. I want to focus the discussion a little bit and move it toward a different situation. I want to get both your thoughts on this because it's a another I consider nebulous situation for fantasy. The Jacksonville Jaguars backfield. So, first of all, Jacob and I are excited about Liam Cohen moving over there and potentially designing great runs for those players like they did for Tampa. I heard you yesterday, Dave, or maybe it was 2 days ago on FFT, call Tank Bigsby as one of your sleepers. He's one of my sleepers too. I'm on the Bigsby train, but a lot of people aren't. I saw Jacob in his rankings update yesterday move Bashal Tutin ahead of both Bigsby and ETN. And then ETN gets all the first team touches in the first preseason game. What is going on here? What is your read on this? And I'll throw it to you first, Dave, and then Jacob, I want to get your thoughts on this. And I want you to kind of defend why you did move Tutin up there and why that's the bet you're making there. But Dave, what are your thoughts on what you've seen from these players in the preseason and just your expectations?
I am going to see them in a joint practice next week. So I really hope to get some answers for everybody.
Okay.
But if you're drafting before then, let's work under the assumption that we're going to have a committee and that we'll see all three of these guys from week to week, at least to start the season. But the sense that I get is that ETN might start and he can play on passing downs. Bigsby cannot play passing downs, but ETN can. Bigsby can work rushing downs. He can be physical. Overall, in his snaps in the preseason game, I saw some good signs. He had good vision at times. He had good power pretty much consistently. When he saw space, he kicked it up a notch. So I like that he had that awareness. I wasn't really like gaga over ETN. And I just wonder if they just decided to roll out their running backs. All right, ETN gets the first drive. Bigsby goes in after that. Bashal goes in after that. And they didn't necessarily give away how they want to use them. I just know that Bigsby has a little bit more talent than he's given credit for, at least as a pure runner. As a pass catcher, stone hands. Let's just make that clear that if he catches 20 passes this year, it means a lot of people got hurt in Jacksonville. But ETN, Bigsby, for me, they're in that round 8+ range. I'm going to wait on Tutin. I'm nervous that people who draft Bashal Tutin are going to end up cutting him after the first couple weeks of the season, just like they did with Bucky Irving last year. And maybe Liam Cohen gets the sense that, all right, and this is if Bigsby and ETN don't end up being solid for Jacksonville. At some point, he might turn to Tutin and say, okay, let's get you in there and see what you can do. He was thicker than I remember. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I felt like he was a little bit bigger. He had good vision. He had great stop-start, nice cuts. Like there's potential there for sure. So I get where Jacob's coming from. I again, this is another player. I'd hate to take him in round 8 and round 9. I know I can't start him right away.
Right.
How patient can I genuinely be when I know that there's two other running backs, one of whom former 1,400-yard rusher and first-round pick, both in front of him? How long am I waiting until Bashal Tutin gets his chance in redraft?
And Jacob, what made you kind of move Tutin ahead of both of them?
So we're going to go into our how we're going to draft next week.
Yeah.
We'll go through each draft slot, how we would approach the draft. And the week after that, we'll do our rankings. And so I just want to say at where we're at right now, my rankings, you can basically look at them as a list of who I think are the most likely to be league winners. Rather than you have to draft him here. And
Okay.
I want to make that distinction for people as we go forward and get into the rankings and get into how we would draft. That I have Bashal Tutin ranked, right behind Jalen Warren, one spot ahead of Travis Etienne, and then ahead of Caleb Johnson. You don't have to draft him there by any means. I apparently am 84 spots ahead of consensus on Tutin. So no, you don't have to draft him here. You don't have to draft him in the top 100. The only way that you will is if he continues to look awesome. And he truly did look awesome. The only player who impressed me more than him was Travion Henderson. Tutin was next. Everything that you could have possibly wanted from him was on film. I thought a lot of the running backs looked nervous and hyped up and were kind of even guys who we think have really good vision were missing stuff a little bit. And it makes sense. It's their very first time being a pro. Tutin did not look that way at all. He was literally every single play making the most of the opportunity. He looked locked in and so balanced. And I was amazed. Every year there's a guy or two where it's this guy looks ready. If he gets a chance, he's going to come in, I think, and really
Remember who that was for you last year by any chance?
was Bucky. Yeah, it was Bucky
Was Bucky.
Irving. It was
Wow.
Brian Thomas Jr. It was Lad McConkey. You watch those guys, and it's like, okay, they move different. They're locked in, and they're in a good offense, like potentially. But BTJ was the one exception, but he was just so physically dominant.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, with Tuden, I do think the upside is there for him to be much more valuable than any of the guys I just listed, like Jalen Warren, ETN, Caleb Johnson. The top to his range of outcomes is he's playing this valuable role for an awesome offensive coordinator who's really good at getting the ball into running backs' hands in the receiving game. And we saw them do that with Tuden in the preseason game, get him some work that way. And I mean, he's not just a speed guy. All of the stuff that we saw with
Yes.
vision and
Sure.
with contact balance and all of that, that's borne out in the data. He has one of the highest voted tackle rates of any players. I've got a stat that's insane. I think he has the second highest voted tackle rate of any running back drafted in the top 4 rounds against Power 4 competition since 2017. And
He
to be
had
fair,
one in the game against Pittsburgh.
what are you saying? Sorry.
A missed tackle. He made a guy miss, or he escaped a tackle.
Oh yeah,
on
yeah.
a
He's
catch. It was kind of an easy catch, but
yeah,
still
yeah.
did
Go
it.
watch.
Did it.
Go watch the cut up. Like, if you think we're just blowing too much steam here, he legitimately looked incredible.
No, I'm with you on that, Jacob. Look, Tuden was the first evaluation I did. Dave and I, every offseason, this is just a note for those who are interested. During March, April months, we do profiles on these prospects before they come to the draft. We watch 6 games of tape each, and then we put a scouting report up on CBSSports.com, and then we make it fantasy relate. We have dynasty spin, free draft, things like that. Tuden was the first guy I did. He looked awesome on tape. He runs so low to the ground. He runs with great center. His center of gravity is so good. But also, it's like you mentioned his forced tackle rate. I'm pretty sure, Jacob, he was the only back in this class that was top 10 in forced tackle rate and yards after contact per attempt. That's the thing people don't think about with his game. It's like the Bucky Irving comparison comes from there. It's that not only can he force missed tackles, he's also runs really low to the ground and can create after contact. I think he might be the best talent in that room. For me, I don't want to take the leap this year. I'm kind of with Dave. I feel like A, I'm either going to cut him. B, I'm still worried about the fumbles, man. Like 11 in 2 seasons, 9 lost. That type of stuff just won't fly at the NFL level at all from a snap standpoint. So it's just something I can't get out of my head. But I do want to transition here because there is one team that I've been wanting to talk about with Dave more than any team when I saw the rundown, because I feel like, man, am I so much higher than consensus on some of these players, or specifically one player in this offense, and it's the Titans. And I am starting to move Calvin Ridley to unbelievable spots in my rankings. I just moved them up 4 spots this morning. I was looking again at my rankings, my tiers. Like, I don't want to take these guys over Ridley. I don't understand why I would. And when I watch this offense, Dave, I liked what I saw from Cam Ward. Some people are like, oh, he's doing that thing where he's drifting in the pocket, moving back. I like that. He creates space by doing that, and he has the arm talent to get the ball out there. And he was ripping those intermediate hole shots that I loved about his game at Miami. What I called him was a big game hunter when I watched his film when the Giants were in the mix to draft him, because he finds the spots that are open in the NFL, the intermediate range, and he's not afraid to throw them. 2 of those passes to Ridley in the preseason game were thrown with better anticipation than I've seen from Daniel Jones in 6 years of his career in the NFL. And I'm sorry to drag him, but it has to be done. So, Dave, let's talk Titans. Should I be this excited about Ward? Should I be this excited about Ridley? Is it finally happening?
I think for fantasy purposes, you should be excited about Ridley. And what you saw in the preseason game, I saw in practice against the Bucks. And saying that the Bucks defense is good needs to be kept in context here, because they were getting in Cam Ward's face a lot in the practice. This is another team whose offensive line probably isn't where the coaching staff wants it to be just yet. But unlike New England, they might be able to get to a pretty decent spot. They've got a lot of good talent on that line. There's a question mark at left tackle a little bit. That's probably the biggest hurdle that they have. Cam can overcome that because he is very good at moving around in the pocket, escaping that. Sometimes it's to a fault, but he had unbelievable chemistry with Calvin Ridley throughout the joint practice. And you saw a smattering of that in the preseason game. I'm glad you noticed that. And that's encouraged me to move up Calvin Ridley as well. And I think you will shock people in your fantasy leagues if you take Calvin Ridley in round 5. I don't think you have to take Calvin Ridley in round 5, though. I think he'll make it to round 6, and I think he'll be a good value. I think as long as he stays healthy and Cam Ward does his thing, and you completely close your eyes in week 1, because they played Denver in week 1, and that game's going to be ugly. I think you're going to like what you get out of Calvin Ridley. Easily should be the top target getter for the Titans. Clearly the alpha there, still has good speed, still has good agility, can still separate. And the ball placement that I saw both in the preseason game and the joint practice from Ward to Ridley was perfect. It's almost like Ward and Ridley spent time working out together and throwing together. And Ward didn't bother doing that with
That's what it feels
Tyler
like.
Lockett, Van Jefferson, DK, A.O. Manor, like all the other guys in that offense. I think the other guy that he had some decent connection with was Okonkwo. So I almost wonder if Chick Okonkwo's got a chance to be an interesting sleeper. Not that I'm drafting him. I wouldn't tight end premium leagues, but
he was on the field for 100% of the snaps.
Yeah, he's going to play a
Ward.
lot. He was in practice too.
That's never been a thing for him before. He's always split reps.
Right. So it's a nice change for Okonkwo. Again, somebody that I don't think you have to draft. But
Such
Ridley
a massive.
should be put a star next to Calvin Ridley on your draft list before you go in to draft against your buddies.
I mean, I love it. It sounds very concentrated. Sounds like the rapport is great. I'm not even so positive like why Garrett Wilson is a better pick than Calvin Ridley. When I really think about it, they're both being drafted for the same reasons, because they're supposed to get 150 targets, 170 targets, right? Like, what does Wilson have that really doesn't? Maybe he's a better player, you can argue. He's definitely has a worse situation throwing him the football, without a doubt.
Yes. The preseason game kind of reminded me of that, because Fields was like making decisions before the snap and getting the ball out quick. And maybe that's what they told him to do.
He's been awful all week against the Giants' first team defense.
Yeah, and I know he was up and down. And really, when I've learned, and I've kind of learned this the hard way through all my years of watching football, when a quarterback is up and down, that's not a good thing. Yep. You don't want to bet on a guy who's like that. And thank goodness Justin Fields runs. Otherwise, I mean, we would never draft him. I get where you're coming from here. This is stuck in my head rent free since I saw it 3 weeks ago. Garrett Wilson's over-under on touchdowns on DraftKings is 4.5.
Yeah, and I wouldn't take the over.
I don't think I'm going to take it either way.
Justin Fields is going to throw 15 touchdown passes.
Well, I would imagine that a good chunk of them, if he stays healthy, sure. But I think a good chunk of them could go. He could have 5 or 6.
Maybe.
But I think he could also have like 150 targets and turn that into 1,400 yards. Something.
Right. But I think that's the case similar as for Ridley.
Sure. And it's not like I'm not taking Garrett Wilson in round 3.
Right.
Maybe in full PPR, he might be there. I'd have to double check, but I don't think he is. But it's closer than you think between those two.
Right. And I don't, in ADP, it's certainly not. It's very interesting. And you mentioned Chig. There are so many fun tight ends at the end of drafts to consider this year. I just couldn't imagine taking any of those round 4 guys, those Laportas, those Hawkinsons, round 4 to 6 guys when that is available to me late. But that's another topic for another day.
On the Ridley note, real quick, I just wanted to mention that he was moved around a lot. And that's something we saw shift a little bit last year. His average depth of target was really, really high, which I think is partially Will Levis stat. But Callahan moved him around more than we've seen before, got him in condensed formations and stuff like that. And that's all stuff you like to see. They've been hyping up Elik Yamanor a lot, who could come in and play the X. They also got Van Jefferson, who's another guy who could play the X and is like the definition of sacrificial X receiver, like not going to get targets under any circumstances. And so that's great because that allows Ridley to move around more. And man, no veteran moved up, I think, more just off the eye test during the preseason than him. Like you guys hit on it. The connection between those two was perfect. He was with anticipation, right on the money where it needs to be. 43% of the targets during Cam Ward's first preseason game went to Ridley, 57% of the air yards. So it could just be a massive role for fantasy.
If that holds true, he'll be better than Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. And we'll see what happens there. But either way, you're getting him at a discount.
Joking.
Let's talk one more offense with Dave, one that he's got his eyes on, and then we're going to do rapid fire to end the show with Dave and Jacob, just giving takes upon takes upon takes on players who have impressed them so far. But that offense, before we get to that, is the Miami Dolphins. This is an interesting one, another kind of ambiguous offense. I think Jacob and I spent some time yesterday talking up Jalen Waddle as a potential post-hype breakout. And we feel the weird vibes going on with Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa. And who knows what's going on with that running game right now with Tyreek saying, we got to get Jalen Wright in for those red zone opportunities, taking him away from Devon Achane. I mean, also this offense had offensive line issues that totally derailed them. They looked like a shell of themselves last year. Not the Mike McDaniel offense that we knew and loved for fantasy. Is that coming back, Dave? Like, can managers expect to buy and get value out of anyone here? Or are they all overvalued?
I don't think Achan's overvalued. I think he's worth what's his ADP? It's probably late first, early second, more like that. I'd be good with that in full PPR. Not as good with that in non PPR. But to me, their issues start up front and just completely web out from there. When I saw them in practice, it was their first full padded practice. And keep in mind, the Dolphins have some good players on their D line.
Yeah.
Their offensive line was okay. I wouldn't say that they were much better than last year, but they did try and improve the interior. And I think that they were okay. They certainly looked better in practice against themselves than they did against Chicago, where I think it was each of the first 3 plays for Achan. Somebody on that offensive line got totally turned around by the Bears defensive linemen, and it looked silly. Like it looked like a turnstile. And that included their rookie. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. I got to work on that one. But it included their left tackle. This is an issue, and everybody can realize why. I think the Dolphins, and certainly this is based on what I saw in practice, I think their plan A is to try and throw downfield a lot more than they did last year. Waddle was catching a bunch of downfield throws on the day that I went.
Okay.
I talked to other people who went on other days. Waddle seemed to be the favorite of Tua and not Tyreek Hill.
Ooh.
And that kind of plays into what you were talking about, Dan, those weird vibes between Tua and Tyreek. It's almost like Tua's not quite let go of Tyreek's outburst toward the end of last year, or at the end of last year, when he said that he was done in Miami. And I wonder if that's going to end up costing Tyreek the chance at getting back to where he was in fantasy when he was getting 20 points per game. Those were days when he would have double-digit targets. Last year, he didn't have that. Last year, the offense was a total shell of itself. That's their plan B, by the way. If they can't let plan A work, plan B is go right back to what worked last year. Throw a bunch of short passes, get the ball out of Tua's hands quick, put pressure on the defense, do a hurry-up type of offense, and hope that it works. If they do that, and if Waddle's healthy, I think Waddle might have a chance to take over the Jonnu role.
Ooh.
And that would be very exciting because he's certainly more explosive than Jonnu Smith. And I know that right now he's dealing with something. He's always seemingly
Always a little nicked up.
Yeah, he always is. Every football player gets to that point during the season. But Waddle just seems to be impacted by it more than others. There's a word for that. I can't think of it right now. But the bottom line is I don't feel great about anybody other than Achan. Tyreek is like a 3rd round pick by default. Waddle's like a 6-7. I'm not drafting Tua, and I'm definitely not drafting Darren Waller, who I don't even know if he's been practicing.
I feel like if you're not drafting Tua, then I don't know if you're, and I'm totally fine with this because I agree with you. I don't think you're fully bought back in on this because at that point when McDaniel's offense was cooking, Tua was an easy, back end quarterback 1, sometimes even better than that. And I'm with you, Dave. I don't know if this offense gets back to that level. We have it in our minds, but it just doesn't seem, it seems far away at this point from where we're at.
If that offensive line improves, then they can stick with plan A, and that would make Tua more of a buy with a late pick. But there are so many other quarterbacks that I look at and I see huge upside from.
Same.
And I can't, why would I draft Tua when I can get Drake May late, when I could take the shot on Trevor Lawrence late? We can debate whether or not he'll be good or not.
Right.
Jordan Love, I know he's hurt right now. We've seen the end of him for this preseason, but Jordan Love has some good upside. There are a lot of other quarterbacks. JJ McCarthy's a name. There are a lot of other quarterbacks that I would rather, if I had to spend a last pick, I would take them ahead of Tua Tagovailoa.
And that goes for your thoughts in Superflex and 2QB as well, because I know we try to touch on that more. I know our listeners have been saying more auction, more Superflex, and I feel like Tua is not a player we're targeting there either.
No, I think it's a little bit different there, but it's got to be done in the context of, he could be a very good number 2 quarterback in Superflex.
Right.
And you're going to take him over anybody that might lose the job.
Yeah, but that's
like Anthony Richardson. Like I'm much more inclined to draft Richardson in a 1 QB.
Sure.
But in a 2 QB, I'd rather have Tua.
It's fair.
But Tua could just as easily miss time. We know why. And if the offensive line isn't playing a
Right.
lot better than it did last year, which isn't saying much, but if it happens, Tua could end up, missing more time. And then it's Zach Wilson, and that's no good.
I have a corollary here that I think is interesting, and then I have a question I want to ask Dave. I got a question yesterday. Somebody was like, "You're very high on CeeDee Lamb, and you also have George Pickens very high in your rankings, but you're lower than consensus on Dak Prescott. How does that make any sense?" And I'm actually like, I think right at or maybe even above consensus on Jake Ferguson too. And I think this is just an interesting discussion and like relates to what we're talking about here with the Miami guys, where it's like Dak, even at the best version of Dak, is a big win potentially where he's at, where he's being drafted, and is somebody I would want for Superflex, but is someone I'm almost never drafting outside of like stacking purposes for season long, because there are so many quarterbacks that I want that I do think have the added upside of rushing. Whereas like if Pickens hits, and that means that Dak hits by proxy, that's great. But if Pickens hits, that's more meaningful for my fantasy team. Like Pickens being a top 15, 20 fantasy receiver is really, really useful. Whereas Dak, I'm pretty sure I could replicate that output fairly easily. And I would rather just sink that round 10 into Drake May and take that upside. And then if it's around 12 or whatever, sink that into like a backup running back who I think has upside or something like that. I think the real answer to your question, Dan, is it's like almost more of a strategic discussion than just like a straight projection discussion.
Which I get, Jacob, because we are all, I think I'm totally aligned with you. Like we prioritize these running quarterbacks for a reason. But I will say this, in doing so, there are blind spots. Like last year, Baker Mayfield throws for 4,541 touchdowns without an expectation of running the football a lot going into the year. That's the blind spot when you're not chasing those types of players. Like that's what Dak's ceiling could actually be.
I just don't think you can predict that. I mean, like,
it's tough to predict. Agreed.
Yeah. My question for Dave was about Seattle. So I looked at like first half versus second half splits, and for some of these teams, I think there is potentially some signal in some of the personnel things that they did in the first half when the starters were in. Seattle had a 37% shotgun rate, which, dropped to 51% in the second half when they're more just like vanilla stuff. So I think the first half was maybe an accurate representation of what Clint Kubiak's offense might look like. 37% shotgun, super, super low. 53% of their plays involved 2 or more tight ends. Only the Cardinals were higher at 56%, and that's what they do. That's their actual offense. I think that's what we're going to see from Seattle. So the question is about Cooper Kupp, who Dan and I have had a really hard time with. Do you think that they're just going to use Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba as the 2 receivers in 12 personnel, 2 receiver sets?
I wouldn't be surprised. I would lean toward yes, but with an asterisk. And the asterisk is if they need to put more speed on the field.
Right.
And like I think that they've got the personnel to at least try to match up with their opponents. And what I mean by that is, okay, if they're taking on a team that's got a really great pass rush, they can get to the quarterback with just 4 guys. They don't need a blitz. And they've got a secondary where the safeties could cheat down, and they don't want the safeties to cheat down. They need to put some speed on the field, and they need to put an extra blocker in. And in that type of situation, I bet we see less of Cooper Kupp and more of somebody like Torrey Horton. And Horton is I think they wanted it to be Valdez-Scantling. And from what I understand, Valdez-Scantling hasn't been getting it, but Horton has. Yeah. So you might hear Horton's name a little bit more. It doesn't mean he's going to get the ball a lot. It doesn't mean he's going to have a great year. And it's absolutely going to be a game-to-game thing with him, just as it might be a game-to-game thing with Cooper Kupp. But if they go out there and it's JSN and Kupp as the 2 wide receivers, and then Barner is 1 tight end, and I think he'll play more than Arroyo this year, at least to begin the year. There's not a lot of speed out there. That's a size package. That's a good package to run with. You can run behind that line, and with Barner there, and Arroyo can block a little bit too. But maybe in the red zone that would work better as well. Now that I kind of think it through, they could go that route, but it's not going to be a high flying offense like what Darnold was throwing to last year when he had such great receivers.
My thoughts on this is that Kupp might be a little overvalued. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba, we could see a huge turnaround in his per route data. 2 guys that I've focused on in terms of like their per route data being a little bit lower than you would like relative to their ADP are Jackson Smith-Njigba and Garrett Wilson.
Hmm.
And I'm hesitant to do just like a straight extrapolation of JSN's per route data because one, he's going into year 3 and it could just get better. But also this more 2 receiver sets means less competition for targets, especially when we're talking about AJ Barner at tight end and potentially a rookie or Marquez Valdez-Scantling or maybe Cooper Kupp as the other receiver. The other thing is more under center plays leads to higher efficiency targets. That's borne out in the data. More play action, all of that comes from more under center plays. And so it's just all Clint Kubiak stats. And I do think it's just something to consider with JSN because I don't really have anybody else I really like in that round 3 range.
It makes
it's
sense.
Yep.
The other thing I'll add is I think they're going to stick with Kupp playing in the slot more, and JSN will play wide more.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I don't want that to scare anybody off from taking Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think there's a trend coming where teams are going to value wide receivers much more for their route running ability than their speed. And that's not to say that speed isn't important. Obviously, speed is important. Give me a break. But the ability to run a tight route and have that timing with your quarterback. Okay, you're not going to win on a 20-yard, go ball, but you can win on a slant or a post 12, 15 yards and then maybe turn it into something after that. And we've seen JSN do that.
True.
And I wonder if they're going to be one of many teams that line up a receiver that you'd think would be a slot guy, but they put him out wide, but they have him just run a ton of routes across the middle of the field and have a bunch of in-breaking routes where they can get leverage on their corner that wins against zone pretty much every single time. And that they can win against man, especially JSN. He's got great route running skills.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen a lot of that already from some teams. I wonder if that's just going to be part of the key.
That's what Kubiak does, horizontally breaking routes for sure.
It's perfect for JSN, and therefore it shouldn't scare you off. In fact, it should make you more excited.
Imagine
Smith-Njigba.
Imagine a receiver who could route him up like that, create plays after the catch, and had speed, and got to play in this offense. His name is Torrey Horton.
Yeah. I knew you were going there. I mean, look, we're big Torrey Horton fans on this show. Just looks so phenomenal on tape.
I've got a few more notes, and then we'll get to our rapid fire here at the end. So the Saints use a ton of motion, a ton. It really surprised me. I think Kellen Moore has been trending more and more in this direction, but that definitely stood out. Matthew Golden, speaking of motion, got a surprising amount of slot work and was used in pre-snap motion more than any Packer. They designed an RPO screen action to him. He didn't get it. They ran the ball. And then they had a fake jet sweep to him. All of this makes me nervous about Jaden Reed's walking boot status because that's Jaden Reed type stuff.
Yeah.
The Jets used a lot of pre-snap motion. Garrett Wilson was used in motion on 4 out of 10 plays, including 2 cool out routes where he was in motion at the snap, not just like moving in motion before just to diagnose where the defense is going to be. It's like actually getting him a full speed pre-snap motion look, and then at the snap, he's in motion already running into his route. He got targeted on one of them, and it was just a little bit low on the right sideline. And then RJ Harvey, I know maybe we can just start with the discussion about RJ Harvey and then get into the individual players for the rookies. RJ Harvey, I know people have made a lot out of him bouncing things to the outside, which a lot of these runs were outside zones. I liked that he was just so heavily involved. And maybe Jacob Dobbins helmet gate, I don't know. We'll see what happens the rest of the preseason and into the first few games here. But he got a touch on half of Bo Nix's plays. 9 out of 18 Bo Nix plays were a designed touch, not just like a check down. They ran a 1st and 10 screen to him that was set up so nice. There was no one within 20 yards of him. It was just a little bit overthrown because there was a guy in Nix's face when he threw it. The very next play, 2nd and 10, they ran a swing pass to Harvey. They had 3 blockers set up. He just had to beat one guy out in space. So that's like, to me, maybe the film wasn't great, but it was also a tiny sample size. And to me, like the usage is like, we want to get this guy the ball, especially in the pass game.
I think they took him for a test drive and wanted to see how he would do in the role of the 1A back. And I would argue that I wouldn't give him an A, I'd give him a B and say that he did fine, but there's room for improvement. It was his first time out there. I thought that there were a couple times maybe he was thinking a little bit too much and just a little bit slow to process on what he was seeing on the field. But going back to like the most important thing in football, speed, He's got it. Did you love the play where he bounced it outside and he outran the entire 49ers defense to the edge?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Literally
that's
wrote
what his
my notes.
coordinator said after practice yesterday. They
Yeah.
were like quizzing him, like, "Oh, was he bouncing too many runs outside?" He's like, "I don't know. Usually, he just outruns them, so I don't even."
Right. That's
There
a
were-
good thing. We want that. You want a running back that has that ability on top of being able to see a lane and then stay on track.
Right.
You know, not a lot of running backs can bounce it outside and win all the time. And there were a couple times where he tried to win and he didn't do it, but that was an 11-yard gain.
Right.
And that was the most impressive play that I saw from him. I didn't think his blocking was that good. Guess what? He's not going to play on third downs. I think the test drive was 1A for Harvey.
Right.
J.K. Dobbins playing third down. Dobbins had like a play on 1st and 10, but I think otherwise he was playing third downs the rest of the way and a 4th down. He had a 4th and 5. If that's what they do, then that's pretty good for RJ Harvey to have a really nice year. And I might be more inclined to draft Harvey than Henderson in non-PPR because of it.
I draft Harvey over him everywhere. A stat that I thought was really fascinating, Dave, was that Javonte Williams had 46 play action targets over the past 2 seasons, which are more efficient than just normal targets, checkdowns, stuff like that. Breece Hall was the only other running back above 40 over that time. So he's like significantly above everyone. And I think that's relevant because of the third down stuff. Like third downs are mostly going to be checkdowns, whereas like these first and second down plays are designed, play action targets, screens, stuff like that. I think Harvey will be the one on the field for most of those.
Time will tell. I know for you, Jacob, just looking at your rankings, because I edited them, put them up on Sportsline. That's where everyone can find them. By the way, I know people have been asking. You can find his updated half PPR top 150 plus position by position rankings and auction values on Sportsline. You're very much lower on Dobbins than I am. Like, I believe both can be great players. And I always think back, Dave, I always reference this. I always reference this. There was an article Dave did a couple seasons, like maybe now it's 3 seasons ago. Time goes by fast at this job. And it was when Sean Payton was traded to the Broncos, and it was on Sean Payton's running backs in fantasy football. And that just opened my eyes to just thinking and just locking myself into the mindset that draft Broncos running backs. Even last year, the shell of himself, Javonte Williams, over the past few years had like 97 targets or something insane. Like, you're just gonna get the football if you're a Broncos running back. So I like Dobbins and Harvey.
Where are you drafting Dobbins?
I'm drafting Dobbins. So let me take a look right now. I do mostly only auction leagues, as you know, Dave. So it's hard to say. I just bought him for $6 in an auction, but I have him in my 6th tier, just behind guys like Swift, Tracy, Montgomery. He's next up for me.
Yeah,
before the Bigsby ETN types.
That feels way too rich for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way.
Knowing that he could very easily get, limited touches. I mean, he had 6 touches in this preseason game, and it was not even a half. So or not 6 touches. I'm sorry, 6 snaps.
Yeah,
in a preseason game. I think that's a little too steep for J.K. Dobbins. What's the pathway for him to be really good for fantasy? It would have to mean something going wrong with RJ Harvey. Cover your ears, Jacob. You can't hear that type of thing at this point.
Maybe. I see. I'm of the mindset they can both score in fantasy. This could be one of the more fruitful offenses, great offensive line, great scheming coach, and he's going to get the ball to his backs in the passing game, both his backs.
Does he trust RJ Harvey inside the 5?
Well, that's the other thing. If that's Dobbins' role, which I think it very well could be, now Dobbins is in on third downs. He's in the red zone, and he's still getting the extra receptions that anyone would get from playing in a Peyton offense.
Yeah, and therefore he's getting a bunch of high value touches. Now I'm much more excited about J.K. Dobbins
behind a good O line.
We don't know if that's the case yet. And there's also the bugaboo about Dobbins' injury history.
Yes.
Could you just spend $6 on a guy you're going to lose by week 5?
Potentially. It's definitely a player I'm clearly higher on. I can see that just looking at different rankings, but we'll see what happens there. All right, let's let you guys do some rapid fire things, then we'll get out of here. Just thoughts. Jacob, you can drive this conversation. Where do you want to start?
I want to start by reiterating what Dave said. Don't overreact to this stuff. Because these rookies are very, very exciting. And Kyle Williams looks like he can't be covered. He looks like Josh Downs out there, but is he going to get on the field? Maybe not at all this year. Who knows? And to follow that up, I want to look at my rookie roundup that I did last year. So this is August 27th. So it was towards the end of the preseason. I had more data than I do now, more film than I do now. But there's some clear hits on here for everything that I just said. There are Brian Thomas Jr. looks like the man. Like, we see him now at the NFL level, and he's just impossible to cover. Jalen McMillan looks a lot better than I expected. Looks really smooth. Could break out if he gets an opportunity. Even like Bucky Irving and Ray Davis, I'm like, these guys are good. If they get to play, I think that they will be really good. And then some other guys like Polk, Javon Baker, Malachi Corley, who people are getting excited about. I was like, I don't see it. The team is not prioritizing it. They can't get open. I do think there can be value in watching these snaps, but definitely don't overreact to it. Tyron Tracy was another one. I thought he looked really good when he got in there. It was only one preseason game last year, but that was another hit for us on Beyond the Box Score here. Let's go just like one by one, me and Dave, and talk about somebody who really impressed us. We already talked about Henderson and Tootin. They were at the top of my list. The next guy I would go with is Isaac Tesla for Detroit. 6'4", super athletic. At Arkansas, he came into an offense that was already established with a clear wide receiver one. Massive target rates for Andrew Armstrong on the outside. They just stuck him in the slot and didn't throw it to him. Then Detroit signals serious interest to go get him. Apparently the Saints were interested in getting him. Detroit moves ahead of them, gives up multiple picks, takes this guy. He comes in and looks phenomenal. He's routing people up. He's making contested catches. He's huge. They keep talking about how like they actually are thinking about incorporating him in the offense now. I don't know what kind of role could materialize, but definitely keep an eye on this guy. Especially you got to get him in dynasty leagues if he's available.
I'm thrilled to hear that. He was one of the quiet guys at the Senior Bowl. There were some other receivers that were just they were flashing every day, but Tesla was always able to just like do his job, and he practiced hard and he looked good and he had good size.
They love his blocking. They talk about that, like all the little things they like.
Right. Well, I mean, that is part of playing wide receiver. Fantasy managers don't want to hear that, but that's an important thing. And he's a Detroit native. It's a great story. I didn't get the chance to watch him play, so I'm really glad that I heard that from you, Jacob. Thank you. Let me start with my boy, Tyler Warren.
Oh, yeah.
Who had 3 catches and 40 yards, and you saw him rumble a little bit in the preseason game against Baltimore. For a big man, I thought his speed was good. Really showed up anytime he thought he had a chance to catch the ball. There were some routes that he ran. They were designed for others. And in those routes, Warren kind of, he hoofed it a little bit. I don't like that. I wonder if that's something that the coaches will address with him. I thought he had good timing with Richardson on a short hitch. I thought that was good. The treat was how the Ravens needed 2 defenders to take Warren down on 2 of his 3 catches. And it reminds me of my favorite stat about Warren. Dan, you've heard this one before. When he ran the ball at Penn State, he averaged about 5 yards after contact per run. When he caught the ball at Penn State, he averaged more than 5 yards after catch per reception. And seeing that translate a little bit in a preseason game, that's a nice, it's like we talked about earlier, just kind of confirming the priors, seeing that something that he did at the college level is now happening at a level of NFL play. It's not the level of NFL play, but it just encourages me a lot more about Tyler Warren. And I've already had him. This, guys. I've had him ranked so high.
Yeah.
All off season long.
Where is he ranked actually currently for you among tight ends?
He's a late round 8 pick. And I was saying before, I'm going to take him in round 10 in every league. Now I can't get him in round 10.
Are you Tyler Warren over Colson Loveland? You're going to get booed off the Beyond the Box Score podcast.
Yeah, this ain't for you.
It was nice spending time with you guys. Thanks for having me. But yeah, Loveland was one of the rookies that I thought looked like he was thinking too much out there. He didn't look like that. And now I'm double dipping on the rapid fire, but here we go anyway.
I like it.
He only played like 4 snaps.
Right. But on his routes, I just felt like he wasn't really explosive.
Yeah.
That I know that that's not him.
Yeah.
So I don't mind chalking that up to.
There's a lot to think about in that Chicago offense. That's the whole thing.
Especially for the tight end. Yeah.
That's a good point.
All right, so I brought up Kyle Williams multiple times. If you search Jacob Gibbs, Kyle Williams thread, you'll find him route running. It's really worth watching. He's awesome. I want to bring up Jackson Dart, and I'm just going to throw this to Dan. I want to hear his thoughts on Dart. I was really, really impressed. I thought he looked so sharp.
I mean, yeah,
I think he's the Giants starter.
Wow. As soon as when, Dave?
If I'm Brian Daboll and he continues to see this from Jackson Dart, I'm week 1.
Wow.
Let him out there. Because Russ looked like the Russ that we've kind of seen.
Russ has looked really bad in these joint practices with the Jets, and so has the entire Giants offense, to be honest. So has opposite side, the Jets offense. Has been defense from what I'm seeing and hearing from people on the boots on the ground. As far as Jackson Dart's preseason game went, Jacob, It's hard not to be impressed. First of all, most importantly to me, I feel like he has that, and he showed this at Ole Miss, that innate ability to understand when pressure is coming and to slide and reset in the pocket. This is something that plagued Daniel Jones's entire career. And there was a 2nd and 15 where he slides from the pressure, sees it early, slides, body's moving to the left, all his momentum and body weight is moving to the left, and he fires it 3/4 arm slot for a 15-yard gain and a first down. That's like the innate stuff, that chef's kiss type stuff. The touchdown pass he threw was great. Like, he diagnosed it pre-snap, saw the safety rotate down. I think it was DeMar Hamlin who was still on the field at that time.
Real
Understood
quick,
he had a one-on-one, made a check at the line of scrimmage to little Jordan Humphrey to say, run a go route because the safety is rotating down. Like, this is high-level stuff for a rookie, clearly, and then delivers the throw right on the money, like leading the receiver. So it was awesome. It was exciting. He even had a couple runs. He had a 13-yard gain on a run, which was kind of showed off like, hey, this guy ran at Ole Miss. Like, this, if you draft him in fantasy, this is not a stationary quarterback. He will run a decent amount. And Brian Daboll has designed runs for quarterbacks all the way through Tommy DeVito. He would actually have design run calls for DeVito. That just shows it's a big part of the offense. So yeah, man, it was exciting.
On the rollout to the left throw, I just wanted to bring up that Tyler Shuck tried to make that exact throw, and it was a nice play, and he just, like, nowhere near the receiver, into the dirt, like behind him and at his feet. And it's like, that's a really hard throw to make. And Dart made it look easy.
Yeah, he had juice on his arm. That's what, JT O'Sullivan said. He did a breakdown. He's like, the first thing I want to say is I'm impressed with the juice he has in his arm. I think a lot of people were surprised by that, but he does have really good arm talent. Made a lot of big throws at Ole Miss. Led the NCAA in 20+ yard throws there. So,
all right, I'm taking another one. Juice on the arm, mobility. I thought Jalen Miller looked really good. What do you guys think?
Yes.
I haven't watched him.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a big Milroe fan, but this is not what we have to worry about with Milroe. Like, does he have juice on the arm? Is he going to look like it? The one run he had by his end zone, Jacob, that was unbelievable. That was like what reminded, when I watched his tape at Alabama, I said it, and it was a bold take, but I stand by it. I thought he was the best running quarterback I watched since Lamar. Different kind of runner than Lamar, but the best, because he would win the edge like he did on that run. And so if he ever gets in starting for Seattle, to me, he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback immediately.
To me, Miller was very similar to Dart, except that the running upside is higher. I think they both had a lot of hand-holding in their college offense, where it's just like, do this, just do this thing. I thought both of them showed flashes of being able to process and might be able to, but I also think they both have NFL play callers who can help them by just simplifying things for them. A lot of play action and RPOs and stuff like that. Do you disagree with that, Dan?
Yeah, I disagree one thing strongly about them that's different to me. For Milroe, I thought the two quarterbacks throw with a vastly different level of touch. I think Jackson Dart does a good job of getting the ball up and down in between, and Milroe's a straight fastball thrower, but it helps him on those big 55-yarders. He would be on his back foot at Alabama and just ripping it downfield. That's not something Dart can do.
Sideline
a lot of those underneath were just too hot and high and flat.
I agree with you. That's a good point. It's like, it's not quite like Penix, but it's something like that, where he doesn't layer throws as well, but he can rip it even to the sideline.
He can put heat on that thing.
But it's the shorter stuff that he was never really consistent with.
Right.
So Jacob, how was he on the 4 incompletions that he had against the Raiders?
I thought he looked fine. Like, there were a couple throws that weren't great, but I thought by and large, like, it was just like, make that throw, he made it most of the time. There were a few that just got broken up.
All right. So if there's more of that, then that's something to get mildly excited about if he gets the chance to play this year. Obviously, he's a name to keep in mind for those dynasty leagues that haven't had their rookie draft yet, and for those keeper leagues that are out there. Milroe's absolutely worth taking a shot on with a late pick.
One final note on that, and then we'll move on. I'm not comparing the two players at all, and I'm not saying it's going to be apples to apples. But when he entered the NFL coming out of Wyoming, Josh Allen had a very similar problem on tape. A lot of flat throws, a lot of hard throws. He would miss all sorts of passes into the flat. Never had more than a 60% completion rate at Wyoming. He changed his mechanics, and that fixed him as a thrower. And I'm not saying it will happen for Milroe, but he has all the tools. Like, he has stuff that you can't teach. And you could actually improve your mechanics, as we've seen with Josh Allen, to become a more accurate thrower. We'll see if it works. Doesn't happen for everyone, obviously.
Sounds like an Anthony Richardson note.
No, Richardson's issue to me is more he just he didn't play a lot in college.
He's working with Josh Allen's trainer.
I know, but which is cool, and I think he can improve as a thrower. But it's like what Jeff Schwartz broke down. It's like, how are you missing this first day install hot read on that first play where he got injured? And that's just like the stuff that, like, he shouldn't be on a field type stuff.
Dave, who you got?
Do we need to spend time on Teteroa McMillan, or are we already of the belief that he's?
We love him on this show, but I would love to hear your thoughts
Yeah,
anyway.
add fuel to the fire here. Yeah,
Dude, he probably moved up the most of anybody, because I was super excited about what he was doing. Just watching his routes, he won downfield in single coverage. He beat off coverage with a solid slant. That was a gain of 13 yards. Should have had a touchdown from Bryce Young. Bryce Young did nothing wrong on this throw. I believe it was a slant into the end zone. He was breaking in toward the post, and he just didn't turn his head around in time. I wrote down in my notes, that'll be a touchdown in the regular season. And everybody saw the deep ball that he had for 30 yards. And that's the thing that I think Carolina is going to lean on with him. How often is he going to be playing against a cornerback that's as tall as he is or is as strong as he is? And the answer is never, because there's no cornerback that is built like Teteroa McMillan. And so those jump balls and those opportunities, as long as they're placed properly, you're going to see McMillan come down with them. They're 50-50 balls. I'm using air quotes. They'll be 60-40 in favor of McMillan.
Yeah.
I thought he looked like a pro. Either he will have a very, very good year, or he's going to get double teamed every week. There was a play against Cleveland. He got triple teamed. Or if he gets double teamed every week, somebody else in Carolina is going to have a really, really good year. Maybe Jalen Coker. But I think McMillan definitely passed the eyeball test. I want to watch more of him, and I want to add him to my fantasy team. And I'm happy to take him as a round 4 pick in full PPR, no questions asked.
I like it.
You're telling me you didn't already have T-Mac in your top 30? Like
I didn't have him that high. I'll be honest with you. I obviously just a unique player, because he's so big and he moves so well for a guy that's got, dinosaur size. But I was a little bit worried about whether or not Bryce Young could play as well as he did toward the end of last year. And I was a little worried about Canales trying to spread the ball around and getting everybody involved. It sounds like Xavier Legette is fading a little bit. There have been rumors about an Adam Thielen trade. And if that happens, and if Legette doesn't really step up again, then we're talking about a real big target share for McMillan. And I think that target share could be there anyway, even if Legette plays a little bit, even if Thielen stays in Carolina. I thought Bryce Young looked great too. And so things are coming together for the Panthers offense.
If that Thielen trade does go down, I will be rushing to every waiver wire of the leagues I already drafted and picking up Jalen Coker.
Yes.
Right now, I don't feel like I can do it yet and put him on my roster.
I don't think you have to. I don't think
and you don't have to yet, but man, I want to.
He's kind of like a smaller version of McMillan.
Yeah, he is good. When I watch him on tape, I'm like, this dude is a good player.
I worry about his speed. I'm not sure if he's quite as explosive.
I love to hear, Jalen Coker come out of Dave's mouth. Dave knows ball for sure. 3 out of 6 Bryce Young targets went to T-Mac. 1 was the beautiful throw down the sideline. The other 2, he threw the ball before T-Mac had even turned his head on both of them.
Love that.
So you love that. You just love that between QB1, wide receiver 1.
Chemistry.
All right. I'll go with Jalen Knoll next, Houston Texans. Maybe not a guy who's going to be relevant this year. Might take an injury, but I also do think he's legitimately good enough to play his way into a role, whether that's at the expense of Jaden Higgins or Christian Kirk, or maybe both. Maybe they just rotate 4 receivers. I think he's really, really good. What impressed me the most, I already knew he was really explosive, really crisp route runner. What impressed me the most was he looked big and strong. He's not thought of as a big guy. He's thought of as like he was a low A-dot guy early in his career. He's thought of as a speedy slot guy. He played mostly in the slot. But the dude did 23 bench reps. And then he's out here, he broke 2 tackles and just like kind of running through guys, just like, I think he's just a stud. He's like a faster version of Josh Downs to me. He's not quite as quick side to side as Josh Downs, because almost no one is. But he definitely has that in his game. I think he's really, really good. And so it was good to see him out there getting design screens and stuff like that.
Another dude who was at the Senior Bowl and just quietly put together a very good week. It was really difficult for me to pick between Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, both Iowa State wide receivers, which one had the better week between the two. And now I'm going to have to think about that every single week for the next 4 years, because they're teammates in Houston. So that'll be a fun chore. But yeah, very talented guy. I would imagine that he's their slot receiver of the future.
I could see him being a guy that we highlight early on Beyond the Box Score this year, Jacob, in season, like one of the big waiver wire pickups that we're like go in on, whether it be due to injuries at the position to other players there. Player that I believe in. I personally evaluated him. I had a higher grade on him than Higgins coming out, but it's partly the type of player that I like. I like those separator type receivers more than the Higgins types, especially for CJ Stroud. I also just feel like at some point Noel can just play the role Dank Tell played in that offense. When will that be? I don't know, but I think he can play better than Kirk, and I think he can play better than Higgins, obviously, on the outside. So I just am waiting for that day, but he's going to be on my watch list all year.
Sure.
Christian Kirk is honestly like a very similar stylistic comparison
Yeah.
to Noel, and he might be better than him right now. He might have more juice. And Kirk, and I hate to say this, even put this into the universe, but Kirk and Nico Collins are both guys who could get hurt. And if either one of those two go down, then he's in. And if in a world where there's no Nico and it's like Kirk, him, and Higgins has to play on the outside and try to beat press coverage, I think that he's going to be the winner, the biggest winner of the three in terms of who's winning routes the most often.
Yeah, he's a fantastic receiver. He's just missing the top gear.
Yep.
But outside of that top gear, he's kind of like we said about Coker, like a slower version of Tetairoa McMillan. Big guy, big catch radius. And
you talking about Higgins?
Yeah, Jaden Higgins. Yeah, really good quickness. I just don't know if he's got that top end speed. Noel has that top end speed, so they might use him in that role. All right, you want to talk about the Dancing King?
Yes.
Young and sweet, only 20, or at least that's his jersey number. It's Caleb Johnson.
Oh gosh.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I like that.
Just really slow feet when he tried to change direction. It was really disappointing to see. He did a lot of other things well, I thought. He was very physical. He turned some tackle for loss plays into small gains. I thought that was good. Balance was good. Had a couple of moments where pass protection were okay. He did have a catch where the ball came and he actually held on to it and didn't bounce off his hands, but he didn't do much after that. I don't think his offensive line helped him at all, but I definitely got some cold feet after watching Caleb Johnson struggle to really move with any sort of nimbleness. Is nimbleness a word, Dan?
I don't know if nimbleness is a word.
Well, okay. Well, our guy wasn't very nimble. And again, like I don't want to say, well, this is it. This is the end of Caleb Johnson. Throw him out. Don't draft him, all that stuff. It's one game. It's one preseason game. It was 8 carries in the game. I'm just a little more nervous about him. And now I'm a little more excited about Jaylen Warren, because Warren can do a lot of the little things and he can certainly run the ball without having to think too much. We'll see what happens with Caleb Johnson, but for now he's in that round 7-8 range. Maybe that's a dip to buy. Maybe there's value there. And certainly if the Steelers only need 1 or 2 yards, maybe at the goal line, like Caleb Johnson can be that guy for them. But outside of that, I'm like I said, I'm getting cold feet.
The 2024 Dancing King was Ollie Gordon. I felt the same way when I watched a lot of his film. And I think to defend Ollie Gordon's honor, the offensive line was a mess. And so he kind of had to do a lot of this. But he was amazing in 23 and then really struggled last year. I thought he looked great in the preseason. He had a bad drop on a downfield target, but other than that, he really ran hard and looked solid, looked huge, made some plays in the receiving game as well. So he's just a name to keep in mind. Alexander Madison's out for the year now, so he could play his way into a role.
Absolutely could be in that short yardage role for
Miami Dolphins, yeah, to be clear.
Right. But I mean, that's if Miami doesn't add anybody or find anybody else. I was going to say when we talked about the Dolphins earlier, Achane, I hope you're still listening. If we were, Achane is clearly the number 1 back there. I don't know who the number 2 is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Listen, I know that Wright, we're all rooting for Wright. And every single time I look at Jalen Wright, I go, that dude looks like he should ball in the NFL because he's big and fast, but he just has not been able to put it together. And between him and the offensive line in that game against Chicago, where he had 3 shots at a touchdown from a yard out, could not get it done. Really frustrating. And I wonder if it's in the back of the Dolphins coaches' minds that they might need somebody else to either help out Wright in the event that Achane misses games, or help out Achane and be the number 2 back that can give them a change of pace or a different flavor and be successful at it. I wonder if Gordon could be that guy.
I wanted to bring him up because he's somebody I was not high on. Dan, I think like everyone else on this list, I was already high on these guys. But Gordon, I watched him and I'm just like, okay, I was too low on him. I need to move him up.
The Giants were linked to him, so I watched a lot of his tape. I really liked his 2023 tape. It was very different in 2024. I think the team context played a role in it. He has that, if you're thinking of like what type of back he might be in the NFL, think like a DeMarco Murray type. That's what I envision when watching Ollie Gordon, if it hits. High runner, but big and actually has, in my opinion, a really good understanding of spatial awareness and how to maximize space. So he will play faster than he actually is.
He reminded me of Najee Harris.
That's fair too. Similar type player, runs high as well.
Mhm.
All right, any other players you guys want to talk about?
I'll go next. I thought Kyler Murray had a weird day. Started off by passing up on short throws and ran when he held the ball too long and pressure came. He had his timing down with Michael Wilson on a short hitch. And Wilson, I think he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver in Arizona, not number 2 in targets, but just the number 2 guy. He'll probably be 3rd in targets. He had a nice pass against zone coverage to Marvin Harrison Jr. for 15 yards. We can talk about Marvin after this if you want to. McBride was open on a play, as was Marvin Harrison Jr., and instead he ran. His interception was a terrible read and throw to Marvin Harrison Jr. And after that, he started to settle down a little bit. He had good timing on a 21-yard deep out to Trey McBride. He had a smart check down the next play to Tip Ryman. He had all day to throw to get a third read, or got to his third read, rather, and he hit it in the short flat for +10, and then there was a Kansas City penalty on top of that. So maybe kind of an up and down day for his offensive line, clearly an up and down day for him. And then he said after the game that he was just way too excited and amped up, and once he cooled off, it was after the interception, he felt a lot better. And I think the film reflects that. He's someone that I'm interested in drafting. I'm not saying I'm excited in drafting him. He is a top 12 quarterback for me this year. I do think Harrison can have a better year. I think McBride will have a good year. And if those two are going to have all the targets, or the majority of them, and Kyler's going to run a little bit more, he's talked about that as well, and he certainly did that in this game, Kyler Murray can end up being better than the 20.5 fantasy points per game that he averaged over the last 2 years. I think he can beat that. And so I don't mind taking him as one of the first, let's call it 11 quarterbacks off the board.
Kyler said that he was amped up for the preseason game.
Yeah.
He's so funny, man.
I know.
Yeah, when you said he had a weird day, I was like, it seems like it's always a weird day with Kyler Murray. Not a bad way. I mean, it frustrates Dan. It frustrates me sometimes, but it is all, you never really know what to expect.
I thought Harrison, by the way, certainly played with much more physicality. The story on him all offseason was that he bulked up. He went to the Hans and Franz gym and got himself some nice pythons, RIP Hulkster. But his explosiveness still really wasn't there. I think he's going to crush it against zone coverage this year. It's the man coverage that I worry about with Marvin Harrison Jr.
I love to see him get a target over the middle, work in the middle area of the field with timing and anticipation. That was cool.
Yep.
I've got a crazy stat. It's that Marvin Harrison Jr. was, I think, 3rd in win rate on dig routes in terms of like fantasy points data. They chart every dig route, and he had the 3rd highest win rate, the percentage of those routes where he won. And he was only targeted on 10% of those routes.
Yeah.
And that's just like, it's a Kyler stat. Like, it's frustrating.
Right.
But it was good to see that in this game, that they designed that. They're designing more horizontal routes for him.
Fine, but Kyler has to see it and throw it. And I don't know if it's really going to be an isolated thing or not, that Kyler said he was so excited and that's why he held the ball long and that's why he threw a crappy ball to Harrison for the interception or not. But you guys have said it. Kyler has been awkward all along in his career. And if he's not seeing it from Harrison, if he could be staring in the middle of the field and not fire the football. If that continues to happen, it's going to suck for both of them. So hopefully it's just going to get drilled into his head over and over again. Lean on Marvin because he can win on these routes. Take advantage of it. Take those shorter gains. Don't try and hit the home run. Don't hold the ball forever and go make plays like you're supposed to do as a quarterback.
If by now you somehow don't know about Rocket Sanders is like my low-key favorite player in the league. Look up Jacob Gibbs, Raheem Sanders, or Rocket Sanders. Jacob Gibbs, Corey Kiner, Kiner, or Jacob Gibbs, Efton Chisholm, EFTONCHISM.
Wow, we're getting deep today.
Yeah, we're not
Chisholm stood out in those practices, Jacob.
Yes, it's been a steady drumbeat on this guy, and I thought he looked great. But you can watch film on them if you find that on Twitter with my name. Jarquez Hunter is the guy I actually want to talk about to wrap things up in terms of my list here. I thought he looked great. I thought it was everything that you would have expected from his college film. It kind of reminded me of Tootin. It wasn't nearly as flashy as Tootin because he's just not nearly as flashy. But it was like all the ways that he won translated immediately. He looked really solid. He made the most out of the space that he had. The blocking wasn't as good for him as it was for Blake Corum, but he still was able to navigate and put up similar efficiency. I thought both him and Corum looked good, but Hunter was the one where I was like, this guy could get on the field if he can do this, if he can run with conviction and find the holes and take solid plays and then also give them explosive plays. He definitely has the burst to do that.
Interesting. Not a player I had a chance to get my eyes on. So at least this preseason, obviously a player who I'm super high on before that. My issue with Hunter is just going to be the quorum factor there, Jacob, and what happens there. I also just have the heebie-jeebies when it comes to the Rams offense right now until we get a little bit more clarity on the Stafford situation.
Does it feel a little bit to you, Dan? Does it feel a little bit to you like Christian McCaffrey in the 49ers last year?
Oh, interesting. With that, the way that Shanahan played that, not yet. Not yet.
Okay. And I know that there was an injury that happened to McCaffrey right before the season started.
Right.
But I feel like I think it's obvious at this point that there's more than what they're telling us about Stafford.
Yeah, I don't know. I know people say Jimmy G, he looked better with McVay. I think that's a small sample size we were working with last year. I think it would be an ugly situation for all Rams skill players. But let's talk about anyone else on your list that you didn't get a chance to talk about, Dave.
Well, you want to hear about Travis Kelce's routes?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is Travis Kelce, a big talk point of contention on this podcast because I'm not willing to give up on him just yet. And Jacob is done with him.
Look at Jacob is smiling because he knows exactly what I'm about to do.
I would have heard that.
Kelce played 3 snaps. He blocked on all 3 snaps. He didn't run a single route. That's all I have on Travis Kelce. Okay. Well, I know time's running short. You want to hear about Kyle Monangai or Emeka?
Oh, yeah. Both.
Let's do it. Let's do both.
You can only have one.
Fine, Monangai.
He wants to talk about Buka.
You guys are such sickos. I
want Monangai. Monangai's my guy.
He impressed me. He really did. He started for the Bears. He's not ready for pass protection by any stretch, so you can throw that right out the window. But his burst was consistent. He followed blocks. I would say he followed them to a fault. It makes me wonder, one of the knocks on DeAndre Swift, and one of the reasons why I don't really love DeAndre Swift is because he freelances too much. I wonder if it's just drilled into Monangai's head. Follow your blocker, because there was a play, I think it was near the end zone, where he could have cut back inside and run it in for a touchdown, but he didn't do it. He had to follow his track. He did exactly that. He didn't freelance. He's a powerful runner. He reminded me of like a low rent version of David Montgomery. He's not as big as Montgomery.
I like that.
But he certainly played with that type of physicality and power. I'm looking forward to seeing him in action in Chicago. And if the Bears really do stand pat with their running backs, I wonder if he could, at some point sooner than later, knock down Roschon Johnson, at least in the short yardage role, give DeAndre Swift the 3rd down role. And that would mean a lot more for Swift. That would make his value go up, but Monangai could still get in there and be a physical type of running back. Not ready to draft him in a typical redraft league, but in those late round pick in the keeper leagues, later pick in the rookie only drafts, may not be a typical 7th round running back just yet.
I like it. All right, this is Beyond the Box Score. This is a deep dive episode. This is like the nitty gritty of what you come to this show for. We went deep on players from preseason, from joint practices. Hopefully, some of these players will ultimately become waiver wire winners for you this season. You never know. And when they do, I want to give credit to Dave and Jacob for diving deep on these players. And for the rest of you listening in, please do us a favor. Hit the like button right now. We need your help to grow this show. It's a new show. We're trying to prove ourselves to everybody watching. And that means the way to do that is by hitting the like button and leaving a comment. Get involved in the show. Be a part of the show. Become part of the community. One thing I always appreciate about FFT, the main show, is that Dave, Jamie, Heath, and Adam have done an excellent job of creating and harboring a community that people are involved in. There's inside jokes. We don't have that yet on Beyond the Box Score. We're hoping to get that at some point. So be a part of it. Thank you to everybody listening. Leave a rating review on Spotify and iTunes.
Jacob, when you guys win an award for this podcast, you're making the speech. You're making the acceptance speech.
That's because we're worried that Dan might drop an F-bomb.
We need to, what we need to do? We need like a, what is that? You know how Adam has a soundboard for the show, for the main show? We need one that just plays the Oscars send-off music for me when I'm doing intros and outros on the show.
I'm guilty of it too, man.
I'm the worst with it. Have a great rest of your week or weekend. Tune in 4:30 p.m. Eastern on the Fantasy Football Today channel for the live stream. Myself versus Adam Azer for the match. We're raising money for St. Jude. Please get involved in that as well. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.